All right, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the CCN News Media On Point. This evening, we're on point with wrongful convictions, and our speaker tonight is going to be Mr. Brian Vickers. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Good evening, everybody. How you
Oh,
doing?
okay, and Brian, you can introduce others. I think we have Miss Sandra Campbell on the line. Sandra, welcome to the show, and we'll let Brian lead the discussion. So, Brian, you want to take us through whatever questions you might have and whatever statements you might want to make. I'm going to turn the discussion over to you.
Okay. Tonight's subject will be focusing in on wrongful imprisonment and wrongful incarcerations. Wrongful incarcerations happen for many different reasons, and they seem to have happened to certain types of people, particularly Black and brown people, and really people who are poor and disenfranchised and don't really know the law and really understand the machinations of the law.
Mm-hmm.
I also too people who, like I said, began poor, who are poor and disenfranchised and really don't have the money for a real top-notch defense attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's also, to my understanding, a lot of times public defense attorneys they're better than the ones in private practice.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay, they're better than the ones in private practice. Okay, and um, also too, wrongful convictions are not only happening here in our backyard, but they're happening all across America. Texas, especially in the case of Mr. James Broadnax, who was wrongfully put to death. Texas, yeah, and there was an article in the Dallas Times um, entitled "How Dallas Got It Wrong" because his cousin confessed to the crime.
Mm.
And there was no DNA on the murder weapon. And Broadnax's DNA was not on the alleged murder weapon. But again, it seemed like Texas was just intent on just putting somebody to
To
death
death.
for this hideous crime. Okay, and something the late Governor George Ryan told me: the worst thing you could do is to someone is give them life in prison, no parole. Okay.
Right.
And this is coming from a governor who would ultimately go up to federal prison himself.
Mm.
Now, and we all know federal prison is a whole lot different than state prisons, like say Menard or in Louisiana, Angola, in which in my opinion those are two of the worst prisons in America. But nevertheless, eh, life in prison without the possibility of parole is much more effective. And that came from I heard that from a former governor of Ohio say that. And the reason being is because a lot of times death is an easy out
Mm-hmm.
versus somebody being in custody of that correctional facility for the remainder of their life and know to until they are called home.
Right.
So how is it? But I'm sorry, hi, Brian. How does he consider it an easy out? Um, I think that was a very callous statement. I don't believe in the death penalty at
Me
all.
either. When I say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, when I say easy out, meaning uh, because there are inmates they will tell they will tell you and I've even read some of the letters from some of them where they have thought about suicide. Some have attempted suicide because they are just sick and tired of being incarcerated in that facility. Okay. And when I say easy out, meaning they're put to death when they're put to death and they don't have to worry about it anymore. And if you've ever seen the end of the movie called Dead Man Walking, which was a true story, and at the end of the movie, Matthew Ponslet said, I'm glad I'll be done with all this. No more bars, no more cells, no more locked in a cage, and I'm done with this. He was because he was on
Free.
his way to the death chamber where they were going to put a needle in his arm and put him and put him to death. That's what I mean
Mhm.
by easily out, meaning they don't have to deal with that correctional facility anymore.
Mhm. I'm
That's what I
sure
mean
that's a.
by
I'm sure that's a living death in itself.
Correct.
yes.
Well, I'm saying, the my thing is the loss of life and the fact that a person wants to die because of his environment is also a diminished mental capacity right there, because no normal, quote unquote, normal person should want to die prematurely, especially if that person is not suffering from an illness. The fact that they've incarcerated him or caged them, and the treatment there is so horrendous that it would take him to where a point where he wanted to die. And even if he wanted to die before he came in there, if that was the end goal, still again, that's sad because this person needed help. And it's terrible that he had to take a life in order to get the help that he wanted, which was to end his life. I mean, it's a messed up situation. Either way, it's horrible, and I don't know how the governor got to that conclusion, because I hear what he's saying, but I don't think that's easy either, to wish yourself and want yourself to be dead. I don't think that's an easy out. And I guess he's talking from a punitive standpoint, which again, I still don't get it, and I'm good with
Well,
not getting
Governor Ryan was saying that's the worst you could do to someone is give them life in prison, no parole, because
Mhm.
because each and every day you wake up, you are in custody of that correctional facility. You are you're there with other inmates. You're very confined. It is strictly regimented and regulated. On and on.
Yeah.
So yes, and also too, one is deprived of their civil liberties for whether it be a number of years or again the rest of their natural life.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
According
Okay,
to
and
uh,
and 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 that is a major punishment. Yes, and one thing, and another colleague of mine once said that prisons need to be more about healing versus where human warehousing and punishment.
mhm,
You know, uh, and that's what a lot of these correctional facilities are: human warehousing and
mhm,
punishment and harsh,
It's
draconian.
not about right. It's not about reform or rehabilitation,
Right?
and
Okay,
it hasn't been for almost 50 years. Yeah, it's been a long time.
absolutely, and this is one of the reasons why I say, and I'll continue to say, that the death penalty for some people, a lot of them, it's an easy way out versus having to remain in custody of that correctional center facility for the remainder of their life. They would rather just go on and just be put to death, and where they don't have to suffer, they don't have to deal with that stuff anymore. You have
mhm.
to deal with that kind of treatment anymore. That's why I say it's an easy out. This is one of the reasons why I say abolish the death penalty everywhere, and maybe make a lot of these correctional facilities a place of healing and rehabilitation. Now, those who have had rehabilitation potential, rehab them, help them transition back into society where they can be responsible, tax-paying citizens. Now, those who quote unquote cannot be rehabbed, I guess like a John Wayne Gacy or Jeffrey Dahmer, they should not be in society. But I don't
Mhm.
think putting them to death, and which by the way, you can even look this fact up. It's easier or cheaper rather to warehouse somebody in the Department of Corrections for life than it is to put them to death.
Hmm. Okay. I don't know, but
That's interesting. How much do they? I know the last thing I heard about having someone incarcerated in the state prison here in Illinois, uh, it was like and I looked at this in maybe 2015, the last time I got a chance. And I think it was like $47,000 a year. So, what are they charging to do an execution?
And look how many. And according to let's see, legal knowledge, there are 920 death row inmates. There were in 2024, and there were 23 of them were Native Americans. This is just, it's like it's a racket, it's a business.
It is. It is. And again, like I said before, it's cheaper to keep them in prison for life. It's cheaper. I mean, because if you think about it, death row, that's a special part of the correctional facility where they're gonna have to be housed. And then of course all of the appeals process, which could take years.
Mhm.
And then the execution, it's the death phase itself, meaning where you have to take them from death row to death watch.
Mm.
And death watch, uh, death watch, where they're being watched 24 hours a day up until the time that they have to go to the actual death chamber, where they're going to be given a state coffin, state burial, and of course the means of execution, whether it be death by lethal injection, and then again that's needles and chemicals. Uh, Death by electric chair, again the big yellow mama, again electricity.
Oh wow! So all states now, are they all uh, putting people to death now? There's are there some states that are not doing it? And let's just take a moment and welcome Craig Wimberly to the show. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Hey Craig, how you doing?
Doing very well. And thanks for the invite.
Thank you for coming on. We appreciate your input. So, what do you know about this prison industrial complex that we're experiencing today?
Well, I was very interested in discussion. I recently had, I'm president of the Coalition of African American Leaders, COLE,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we recently had one of our monthly breakfasts devoted to Kevin Jackson, who recently was exonerated. Right, he spent 23 years for a wrongful conviction. That was overturned and toward the end of 2025, and he was released. And he's currently attempting to get a certificate of innocence, and it's being blocked by the state's attorney
Oh.
because she is nothing nice. I'll just put it that way. And so we're trying to be supportive and pushing for him to obtain that. And in fact, we're going to work on legislation so that when a wrongful conviction is overturned, the certificate of innocence is automatically
Generate.
provided. Yeah. So
Okay.
again, we've been focused on this as an area that impacts us greatly, right? Uh,
Exactly.
and so I appreciate being invited into this discussion.
Oh, well, thank you for that input. We appreciate that input because we know that we are the largest population of people in prison, whether
Absolutely.
whether it's state or national, and it's unreal. We have to come together to do something to stop this because it's like slavery all over again. The only time that you are enslaved is when you're put in prison.
And we have to attack it at every aspect of it, right? From wrongful arrest, right, to
Yes.
trumped up evidence,
Yes.
to the conviction rate. We're convicted at a rate significantly higher than
Absolutely.
any other population.
Yes.
And so it's just something that we need to focus on. So again, I appreciate the fact that you are. And
Thank you.
whatever I can do to work with you, just let me know.
Okay, so Brian, you hear that? Because Cole is a very significant organization. They've been around for a long time, And if they're focusing on that, then you know it's really something serious, and we need to support that focus and get out there and do what we can. So let's do continued discussions on wrongful
Yes,
convictions and see what we can do as a group of people to
absolutely.
to change that, because it just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Brian, you want to continue your discussion, or do you want to add to anything that Greg has said?
Yeah, I just do in the chat my contact information. I don't know if you received it just yet.
Greg, he put his contact information in the chat for you. Do you
He's
see it,
muted.
Greg?
He's muted.
Oh, okay. Well, if you put it in the chat, I'm sure he'll get it, because I'll send it out.
Yeah, I'll get it from the chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it is in the chat. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Brian, what else I mean, how many clients right now are you working with that have been wrongfully convicted? And is the family
Many.
are their family supporting your efforts?
Yes, they. Yes, I mean, I have been working with them, and due to some personal problems, I kind of backed up, but now I'm starting to get back into it slowly but surely, and now, like I said before, I have been reaching out again to people, and even some of the groups on Facebook. Um,
Okay. Let's see.
Groups on Facebook that deal with wrongful convictions and even the death penalty.
What have you discovered, Sandra, in reference to this wrongful conviction that we might need to know about?
Well, I had gone by what Brian and I had talked about a little bit, and I had just looked up, like in what you said before. You asked a question about blacks who were wrongfully convicted,
Mm-hmm.
and again, they've had some information they put out that I was just looking at. Said that as in August of 2022, black people accounted for 50% of the 3,200 recorded exonerations in the U.S. since 1989, despite being only 13.6% of the population.
Right.
And they said at least 1,471 black individuals have been exonerated, often for murder, sexual assault, or drug crimes following wrongful convictions, frequently linked to official misconduct.
Mm.
Um, it's, yeah, when I worked with Balanced and Restorative Justice, with Cheryl Graves and Ora Shube, that was one of the things that we did with the juveniles. We were looking at then the disproportionate number of black and brown who were incarcerated, who were given sentences for minor offenses, whereas many whites were given some type of probation. They were
Mm-hmm.
given 3, 5 years of a prison sentence.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And some even were so petty as to where we would see where we were told that you would go to Cook County Jail as long as it was a year and under. You know that what is it, 364,
Right,
365.
right.
But if they gave you 370 or something like that, you had to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And there were many cases where again they saw where this had been done again for black and brown. Matter of fact, they said they saw very few at the time we were talking about it. Cases, matter of fact, they had none where they had did it to whites at that time,
See.
but they had a significant number where again you going to jail and being able to do your little time and get out, and you probably would have got out early. At that time, they were saying, "Oh, well, the jails were overcrowded; they didn't have anybody to sleep." So what the courts were doing was adding that time just so that the person couldn't walk
Oh,
or
oh,
couldn't
wow.
be on probation. And those were the kind of things that we were fighting then, to include even with kids when they were sentencing juveniles for things. And the juvenile code, thank goodness, had been changed. And I had shared with Brian that I had a cousin because of that juvenile change that happened. But I think he's been out now 5 or 6 years. It's my first cousin's son. He had been accused of committing a murder. He and another young man at the time, both of them were 15 years old, I think, and they were supposed to be doing this thing to joining a gang. So they alleged. That's what the stuff had said. And what happened? Uh, my cousin's son did not kill the police officer. It was the other young youth. The police startled him. They startled each other because the clerk, they were in the store and he didn't even know they were in the store. He would come in the store all the time. It was a convenience store, a gas station.
Mm.
And the clerk knew they were in and didn't say anything, couldn't say anything. And he was wondering why she was talking. My cousin's son said he was standing over by the cooler. The other kid was there near the snack rack and they were pretty much trying to wait for him to leave. And the clerk was looking at the other one with the gun. As the police turned and they startled each other. They said the gun went off.
Oh
Uh,
Lord.
only, only one shot was fired. And that shot, when the gun went off, I think they said it got the officer in the head or somewhere like that. There's only one shot fired. And
Wow.
what they did, they arrested both. Um, the young man that did the actual shooting hanged himself. They found it.
Oh
They
wow.
said he hanged himself. His parents and everybody else said that they hanged him because for killing a cop. And my cousin's son she was trying to figure out what fate would happen to him. And even though the clerk and everybody else, the clerk said again he didn't have a weapon on him, but he was with them. They tried to pin the murder on him also.
Mm.
They tried to attach him some kind of way, which they did do this to another kid, young person here in Illinois, and she's in prison right now, and she wasn't the one that did the killing, but she was there. They attached it to made him some kind of thing where he was an accomplice or something, a participant,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
weird thing, and they gave him double life.
Oh my
Double life.
God.
Isn't that
And what
something?
and that was in
Double life.
that was in Arkansas. He is out free after serving 26 years.
Wow. Lord have
He
mercy.
served
26
26 years.
years.
And what happened, they had denied his parole. He had gone up 3 times for parole.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
because the juvenile code made the change, when they made that law, they said they either gave him parole that third time or they were going to have to let him out anyway.
Mm,
They were
mm.
so ornery and callous and so cold hearted, they denied his parole again. And
Wow.
6 months, I think it's 6 months, 7 months later, after the denial, he was out anyway because he was one of those youth that got caught up in that at that time. And
Okay.
they said it was unconstitutional for them to issue that kind of sentence. And my cousin was very instrumental with her and a lot of other women around the country. She worked for trying to get him out of jail for the entire time he was incarcerated.
Okay.
And she worked strongly with that. She was one of the reasons I got involved in the juvenile court diversion up here because again, that was another angle of stopping the youth from being wrongfully incarcerated or again, using our kids as a commodity. Because as you know, prisons are money makers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It has
Yeah.
nothing, people don't know. And what they've done, they brainwashed so many blacks and so many poor and so many uneducated, uninformed people who don't understand how this world that we live in works to the point where they think it's okay, it's cool, or they need us. They say they need to lock their asses up. But just because I know from working with them, even with CAPS, I can tell you there have been times where they have changed that person's crime. They have changed the charges or made up charges on people. I
Uh-huh.
remember there was a situation here in Chicago. I was part of Chicago Alternative Police and Strategies, which was CAPS. And it was a situation where 100 police officers, you can Google it, so sometimes wrote it up and so the Tribune, they showed up to court to try to show their support, so they said, for they wanted the judge to prosecute. And I remember, I think those cases, that was a situation where they were black and brown. And they showed up there, and they were saying that they would even attest to the charges that had been filed against them. Now, you know damn well 100 police officers were not there when the crime occurred. And
Right.
just so happened they thought they were doing something big or good. And the attorney that they had, just like when he said it was sometimes sometimes the public defender is better than some of these private attorneys, turn around and told them and filed with the court that that was a form of intimidation. And it was. Because to turn around and see 100 police officers in a courtroom in uniform,
Mm.
how is that fair? How is that fair process in the United States?
Yeah. I don't think it was.
It was. Oh, was it? I mean, and it changed the course of the whole everything. And again, at that time, I'm trying to remember who the superintendent was. They put out something and forbade them for doing that. And the union tried to complain, but again, as I guess their attorney said too, it's a violation of the person's civil right because it is a form of intimidation.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Craig, maybe we ought to get together and do a continual, like every other week.
You mean Brian?
Brian, I was saying, Craig, I'm saying that because he offered to work with Brian,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm saying maybe we ought to formally establish like a bi-weekly show, or twice a month or something, and actually go start to identify some cases that we are trying to look at and that we want to bring to the public's attention for support, and maybe we can, like you said, do some political changes, make some changes.
Absolutely, and also as Morgan once said, you got to start in your own backyard.
Yes.
But also too, you got to spread it abroad,
Yeah, that's
and
happening all over the world.
absolutely, and particularly in the Jim Crow South. Now one case I'm going to bring to mind, and which and before I go any further, I just pasted something in the chat. Please look at it, read it, and make and purchase and read that book.
Until I
Uh,
could be sure.
yes, written by the 39th governor of Illinois, the late George Ryan,
Okay.
and and years ago, back in 1944, in South Carolina, there was a young man named George Stinney. He was arrested, convicted, and executed for double murder of two white girls that he did not commit.
Uh-huh.
And he was executed via the electric chair at the age of 14. He is the
14.
Yes, at the age, and yes, and I was just about to say he is the youngest person to ever be put to death via capital punishment
Oh my God.
at the age of 14. And he was exonerated 70 years later, back in 2014.
Isn't
And
that
don't
something?
Brian, don't forget to mention how swiftly that they came about this guilty sentence and the execution.
Yes, yeah,
This
I
all
mean,
occurred in a matter of months.
yes, I
Wow.
mean, he was convicted basically the same day, and his court-appointed attorney made no defense on his
At
behalf.
all. That's
He
yeah,
was just
was he later arrested and put in prison?
no, I don't think so. I'm still
That's the kind of follow up we need to do.
right.
Because
I,
he
I,
got that
I
boy, killed because of his lack of,
interest.
yeah, and capacity to help the young man.
Right.
He
Absolutely.
essentially sent him to death.
Yes.